Greatest Cards of All Time podcast number 18. 2 words, Lou Burdette. Here comes some vintage baseball cards to look at as well. Most notably remembered as a Milwaukee Braves pitcher. What a stud of a baseball player. We're going back in history to take a look at one of the best.
And what did he do? He did something that only 13 pitchers in the history of baseball have done. I'm sure you know what that is. Win 3 games in a World Series. And they weren't just 3 games. He actually had 3 complete games in the World Series, with 2 of them being a shutout. So
that's unreal.
Crazy.
That's never going to be done ever again.
Probably not. The most recent time that it was accomplished was in 2001, Randy Johnson, when he was with Arizona. So it's only happened 3 times. Before we get too far into the podcast or into the cards, actually, something that I thought was interesting is the Lou Burdette. So Lou, all 3 of these cards spell it L-O-U, but actually Lou is short for Louis, which is his middle name.
And it's L-E-W.
And it's L-E-W. So it's Selva is his first name. Selva Louis Burdette Jr., which I didn't see this on any of the cards, so I just thought that was interesting and something worth pointing out.
The first cards we should take a look at while talking about Lou Burdette is a 59 in 1960 Topps. These are nice printings of some Lou Burdette cards. Nice deep color saturation. Really stands out. Bright yellow, looks great, especially with that red Braves logo on there too. Man, his time in Milwaukee was awesome. These cards look nice and beautiful, and you get a bunch of stats on the back too. Really solid set of cards here.
Really like those cards. I'm a fan of 59 Topps, fan of 60 Topps. Before I get into those a little too much here, I want to talk about just a couple other things about Lou Burdette. Was totally known for being a controlled pitcher. He had 1.84 walks per 9 innings pitched. So with 3,000 pitches as a minimum, he's in the top 5, just barely. He gets number 5.
Wow.
Number 1 is Robin Roberts, and number 2 is a pitcher that you would know. He's a pitcher from the 80s and 90s, known for pitching with, I believe, with the Cubs primarily. If you want to take a stab at a controlled pitcher from the 90s that wasn't really obviously known for throwing heat.
I don't know who that would be.
Greg Maddox.
Greg Maddox.
Number 2. So number 1, Robin Roberts. Number 2, Greg Maddox. And then number 5 is actually Lou. And going into the 57 World Series, which we talked about him having 3 complete games, only happened 3 times with 3 wins. I'm not saying 3 complete games. I don't know if that happened any other time, possibly. But his ERA was actually only 0.067 ERA in the World Series. Like I said, 2 shutouts and 3 complete games. Just crazy. All right, so the other cards I wanted to look at and talk about are the 1961 Topps. So the most recent year covered on this is 1960. And actually, during that time, he did pitch a no-hitter in 1960. He only pitched 1 no-hitter. And actually, in 1960, he was 19 and 13. And he led the league with complete games. He actually had 18 complete games that year. And like you mentioned before, his time with the Brewers is when he was actually at his best. In 56, he led the ERA. In 57, he was the All-Star of the World Series, or MVP, I'm sorry. He was an All-Star and MVP of the World Series. In 1958, still with the Brewers at that time, he led the league in win percentage at .667. He received Cy Young votes that year and also MVP votes. In 1959, he led the league in wins. He was 21 and 15, was an All-Star, and also received MVP votes that year too. So that stretch that he had, and there were other years other than just those few that I covered that he was with the Brewers, but during this time with the Brewers, he really was one of the best pitchers in baseball. He is not in the Hall of Fame. His career WAR really does not justify being in the Hall of Fame. 28.6 is the WAR. His career ERA is 3.66. Not really known for being an overpowering strikeout pitcher. 1,074 strikeouts. He is in the Braves Hall of Fame. So Even though he didn't make it to the Baseball Hall of Fame, he did make it to Braves Hall of Fame. Ultimately, his win-loss record was 203 wins and 144 for losses.